Now, in much, much lighter news, I just wanted to comment on the fact Superman is coming out this week. So, of course, this is much lighter news. Superman, the new movie from James Gunn. I've been a little skeptical of it because I think that James Gunn, he's fine for Guardians of the Galaxy, but Superman is a more serious property.
Oh, the absolute chaos that's been brewing in the DC universe lately. And no, I'm not talking about some multiverse nonsense or another villain trying to destroy the world. I'm talking about Dean Cain. Yes, the 90s Superman himself, having what can only be described as a very public superhero breakdown over everything from bisexual comic book characters to James Gunn's Immigrant commentary. But wait, there's so much more tea to spill than you think. Picture this. The man who once wore the cape and supposedly stood for truth, justice, and the American way is now out here having televised meltdowns every time DC Comics decides to evolve past 1993. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because allegedly this isn't just about comic books at all. This is about a former Superman desperately trying to stay relevant in a world that's moved on without it.
Refugees are immigrants, so aren't they really?
Yeah, but you got to understand, Pierce, the United States is the most immigrant-friendly country on the planet by far. We take more than the next 4 countries legal immigrants every year, more than the next 4 countries combined every single year.
So the drama started innocently enough, with DC Comics announcing that John Kent, Superman's son, would be coming out as bisexual in their Superman Son of Kal-El series. Now, most rational people would think, okay, cool, representation matters. But Dean Cain, oh, he had thoughts. Big, loud, Fox News-worthy thoughts. On Fox and Friends, because of course it was Fox and Friends, Cain declared this move wasn't bold or brave, but simply bandwagon. But wait, it gets worse. Cain went on this whole rant about how Superman should be fighting for gay rights in Iran instead of, being gay himself in America. The irony was completely lost on him, apparently. He's essentially saying, why make Superman bisexual when he could just be straight and fight for gay people? Like, sir, do you hear yourself right now? But then something absolutely delicious happened. The internet, bless its chaotic heart, immediately started dragging Dean Cain through the digital mud. George Takei, the legend himself, tweeted something so perfectly petty. I used to be upset that Dean Cain was straight, but he has definitely cured me of that. I mean, the shade was astronomical. And apparently, Cain's tantrum worked exactly as well as you'd expect. The Superman Son of Kal-El series that he was so pressed about, it got canceled after just 18 issues due to poor sales. Dean Cain probably popped champagne thinking he'd won some kind of culture war victory. But here's the thing. Supposedly, the cancellation had more to do with DC's overall restructuring than any conservative boycott. But wait, there's more drama brewing. Fast forward to 2025, and James Gunn drops his new Superman movie trailer. Everything seems fine until Gunn opens his mouth in an interview with the Sunday Times.
The reason that it's relevant politically is because when we talk about the left and the left in the media, and then we talk about the left in Hollywood, the level of out-of-touchness with the everyday American is truly insane, truly crazy. So James Gunn did an interview with the Times of London.
He describes Superman as the story of America and calls him an immigrant who represents basic human kindness. Now, for anyone with half a brain, this makes perfect sense. Superman is literally an alien who came to Earth as a refugee. It's not exactly groundbreaking commentary, but conservative media lost their absolute minds. Fox News went into overdrive, with Kellyanne Conway declaring that people don't go to movies to be lectured to. Jesse Waters made some bizarre joke about MS-13 being written on Superman's cape. The whole thing was unhinged, frankly. And where was Dean Cain during all this? Right there in the middle of it, telling TMZ that Gunn's comments were an avoidable mistake that would hurt box office numbers. Because apparently, Dean Cain is now also a box office analyst, in addition to being the self-appointed guardian of Superman's legacy. But here's what's really fascinating about all this, and pay attention because this is where things get truly messy. Dean Cain has been on this anti-woke Hollywood crusade for years now. Back in 2020, he claimed that his Superman wouldn't even be allowed to say truth, justice, and the American way in today's climate. The man has been professionally angry about Superman for longer than some people have been alive. The really wild part? Comic book writers started clapping back. Tom King and Scott Snyder, actual comic book legends, called out Cain's comments. Jamal Yassim Igal went completely feral on Twitter, calling Cain categorically the worst Superman actor in creation. The dragging was comprehensive and brutal. But then something interesting happened at James Gunn's Superman premiere. When reporters asked Gunn about the conservative backlash,
except in their own mirrors.
I'm sorry. I'm excited for this film. I was excited to see it. It looked like a lot of fun. James Gunn had a lot of humor in that original Guardians of the Galaxy. I was excited for it. I still am excited for it. But, the idea they start talking politics and Superman is an immigrant.
He basically shrugged it off with the most dismissive energy possible. I think this movie is for everyone. I don't have anything to say to anybody spreading negativity, he said. The man was serving unbothered king energy while Dean Cain was somewhere having conniptions. Sean Gunn, James's brother, was even more direct. He told Variety, "People who say no to immigrants are against the American way." The man said what he said, and he wasn't backing down. But here's where the story takes a deliciously ironic turn. Nathan Fillion, who's actually in the new Superman movie, had the most perfect response to all the outrage. Somebody needs a hug. It's just a movie, guys. The casual dismissal was chef's kiss perfection. Now, let's talk about what's really happening here, because this isn't actually about Superman at all. This is about Dean Cain desperately trying to remain relevant in a Hollywood that's moved on without him. The man peaked in 1993 with Lois and Clark, and he's been chasing that high ever since. Every time DC does something progressive, Dean Cain pops up like a jack-in-the-box with his hot takes. The pattern is honestly embarrassing. When Robin came out as bisexual, Cain had opinions. When they changed Superman's motto from truth, justice, in the American way to truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, Cain lost it. When Captain America made comments about the American dream not being real for everyone, guess who showed up on Fox News? You got it, Dean Cain. But here's what's really telling about all this drama. Current Superman actor David Corenswet, radio silence. He's too busy actually playing Superman to worry about Dean Cain's feelings. Tyler Hoechlin from Superman and Lois, also not engaging with this nonsense. It's almost like real actors who are actually working don't have time for manufactured outrage.
And he was talking about the themes in Superman. And he explained that the superhero epic encompasses the story of America. He said, Superman is the story of America, an immigrant that came from other places and populated the country. But for me, it is mostly a story that says basic human kindness is a value and is something that we have lost.
And speaking of manufactured outrage, let's talk about how conservatives have been twisting themselves into pretzels trying to explain why Superman being called an immigrant is somehow controversial. The character was literally created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, two Jewish men whose families were immigrants. Superman's origin story has always been about a refugee finding a new home. This isn't new, it's the entire point of the character. But apparently, Dean Cain and his Fox News friends missed that memo. They're acting like James Gunn invented the immigrant metaphor when it's been there since 1938. The willful ignorance is honestly impressive in its scope. Now, here's where things get really spicy. Sources close to the situation, and yes, there are always sources, suggest that Dean Cain's constant Superman commentary might be part of a larger strategy to stay in the public eye. Apparently, being professionally outraged pays better than his current acting career. Every time he goes on Fox News to complain about woke Superman, his booking fee allegedly goes up. It's giving desperate former celebrity vibes, and honestly, it's not a good look. But the most delicious part of this whole saga, the new Superman movie is tracking to be a massive success, regardless of Dean Cain's opinions. Early screenings have been overwhelmingly positive, with critics praising David Corenswet's performance and James Gunn's direction. Meanwhile, Dean Cain is somewhere tweeting about how Hollywood has lost its way. The irony is that Dean Cain's version of Superman was never even that good. Lois and Clark was campy 90s television that hasn't aged particularly well. Christopher Reeve's Superman films are still considered the gold standard, and Henry Cavill's portrayal was far more complex and interesting. Dean Cain was basically the middle child of Superman actors. Not the worst, but certainly not the best. And yet, he's appointed himself as the supreme authority on what Superman should and shouldn't be. The audacity is honestly breathtaking. It's giving has-been energy, and frankly, it's embarrassing to watch. But here's what really gets me about this entire situation. Dean Cain keeps talking about bravery and what would be truly bold for Superman to tackle. But apparently he thinks the most courageous thing Superman could do is remain exactly the same as he was in 1938.
Dean, let's start with you as the resident Superman expert, because you played him. Your view of this new movie.
Well, I'm excited for it. First of all, these guys all know more about Superman than I do. I promise you that right now. All geniuses.
They've never been Superman. That's the key difference.
That's not brave. That's stagnation. Real bravery would be allowing characters to grow and evolve with the times. Real courage would be representation that reflects the diversity of Superman's audience. But Dean Cain doesn't want growth or evolution. He wants the comfort of nostalgia wrapped up in the flag and served with a side of moral superiority. The funniest part? Social media has been absolutely dragging him for years now. Every time Dean Cain opens his mouth about Superman, Twitter turns into a roast session. The memes are incredible. The jokes are ruthless. And the man just keeps walking into it like he's immune to humiliation. One Twitter user perfectly summed it up. If Dean Cain is mad about Superman being bisexual, we should probably make a gay Hercules and a trans Chachi just so we can upset Kevin Sorbo and Scott Baio too. The way they grouped all these has-been actors together was chef's kiss perfect. So here we are, in 2025, watching a former Superman actor have a very public meltdown about the character he played 30 years ago. It's giving midlife crisis energy, and honestly, it's not the look he thinks it is. But the realty? James Gunn's Superman is about to prove that the character is bigger than any one actor's interpretation. Superman represents hope, compassion, and yes, the immigrant experience. He always has, and he always will, regardless of Dean Cain's feelings about it. The man from Krypton will survive Dean Cain's hot takes, just like he's survived every other controversy in his 85-year history. And Dean Cain, well, he'll probably be on Fox News next week, complaining about whatever progressive thing DC does next. Because apparently, some people never learn that the world moves on, with or without their permission. And honestly, that's exactly as it should be. So the next time Dean Cain decides to share his thoughts on Superman's evolution, maybe someone should remind him that Superman's greatest power isn't his strength or his ability to fly. It's his capacity for growth, change, and representing the best of what humanity can be. And if that's too woke for Dean Cain to handle, well, that sounds like a him problem, not a Superman problem.
So he's now trying to make the case effectively that Superman is kind of an illegal immigrant. Gunn acknowledged the movie's themes may be interpreted differently across political groups, especially considering the nationwide unrest around immigration. However, Gunn stands by the ideals embedded in Superman and added he doesn't care if anyone takes offense.
Dean Cain's anti-woke crusade extends far beyond just Superman. Remember when he went on Fox News to trash the new Captain America comic without actually reading it? Yes, you heard that right. The man formed a passionate opinion about a comic book he admitted he'd never opened. The drama unfolded when Marvel released The United States of Captain America, which had Steve Rogers questioning whether the American dream is real for everyone. Dean Cain saw a few out-of-context quotes and immediately booked himself on Fox and Friends to declare he was so tired of this wokeness and anti-Americanism. The man was having a full meltdown over comic book panels he'd never actually seen. But here's where it gets deliciously embarrassing. When Twitter started dragging him for his Captain America hot take, Cain had to admit he hadn't read the comic at all. It's true, I didn't read the comic, but I stand by everything I said, he tweeted. The audacity. Imagine having such strong opinions about something you refuse to actually experience. It's giving I don't need to taste the food to know it's bad energy. The internet's response was swift and merciless. Comic book writer Gail Simone tweeted something that had everyone cackling. Tomorrow's headline today: Dean Cain declares all successful movies as woke, while on the other hand extolling the virtues of his next project, the direct-to-video Heaven Loves My Hamster 5, about a cartoon hamster that helps bring a family together through the power of love. The shade was astronomical and oddly specific, but apparently being professionally outraged about comic books has become Dean Cain's full-time job. Because allegedly, every time a superhero property tries to evolve past 1950, Dean Cain materializes like some sort of conservative Beetlejuice to complain about it on Fox News. It's honestly impressive how consistently he manages to be on the wrong side of progress. The really wild part about all this? James Gunn has been dealing with way more dramatic opposition than just Dean Cain's opinions.
The new Superman movie has been the subject of intense debate and anticipation, which began more than a year before its release. It could be a make or break moment for the waning dominance of superhero movies and for cinematic blockbusters writ large. Some fans were energized by the prospect of a MAGA Superman.
Apparently, some Zack Snyder fans have been orchestrating an entire campaign to sabotage the new Superman movie. They're calling it Fighting for the Snyderverse, which sounds way more heroic than it actually is. These fans, and I use that term loosely, have been plotting to post spoilers everywhere, flood review sites with negative scores, and even reserve movie tickets online without completing purchases to artificially limit availability. It's giving obsessed ex-partner vibes, and honestly, it's concerning. But James Gunn's response to all this manufactured drama, pure, unbothered King energy. When someone told him about the Snyder fan campaign, he simply responded, LOL, I think we'll survive. I'm not sure that 8 people that listen to that guy are going to impact the course of events. The dismissal was so casual and perfect that it probably hurt more than any elaborate comeback could have. Dean Cain talks about Superman like he created the character, instead of just playing him in one television adaptation. The man has confused being an actor with being an authority, and it's honestly embarrassing to watch. But here's the most ridiculous part of all this drama. While Dean Cain is having his various media meltdowns, early reactions to James Gunn's Superman movie have been overwhelmingly positive. Critics appraising David Corenswet's performance, the film's balance of humor and heart, and Gunn's direction. The movie is tracking to be a massive success. So all of Dean Cain's predictions about how quote-unquote woke messaging would hurt the box office, they're looking increasingly silly. Apparently, audiences are perfectly fine with a Superman who represents hope, compassion, and yes, the immigrant experience. Meanwhile, Dean Cain has moved on to other projects that apparently align with his quote-unquote traditional values. He's been promoting something called Dean Cain All-American Lawman, which sounds exactly as subtle as you'd expect. The man has essentially become a parody of himself, and he doesn't even seem to realize it. The most delicious irony? Dean Cain's constant complaining has probably given James Gunn's Superman more publicity than any marketing campaign could have. Every time Dean Cain goes on Fox News to rant about woke Superman, more people become curious about what all the fuss is about. So in a way, Dean Cain is accidentally doing exactly what Superman would do, helping others succeed, even when he doesn't mean to. It's poetic justice in the most unintentional way possible. Because at the end of the day, Superman will always be bigger than any one person's interpretation. The character represents hope, compassion, and the belief that we can all be better than we are. And if Dean Cain can't see that, well, that says more about him than it does about Superman.